Rooms in Eugene, Roseburg, and Coos Bay. Kval News at 6 starts now.
They're coming in and greeting people by name because they know so many of us already, so that's a little different than a regular first day.
First at 6 this week, students across Western Oregon are heading back to classrooms after months of online learning. Good evening, I'm Jacqueline Fernandez.
And I'm David Walker. We have team coverage for you tonight on the return to learn for schools here in our area. Lauren Negretti is standing by to give us an update on Junction City schools. And Keely McCormick in studio, ready to answer our questions about last night's 4J school board meeting. But first, Olivia Young is live at Ridgeview Elementary in Springfield to tell us about public schools bringing back kindergartners and first graders there today. Olivia, you got to talk to some of the kids on their first day back?
David, I did, and the excitement from students and teachers today really was like the first day of a new school year. You know, many of these students meeting their classmates and teachers in person for the first time after months of only interacting with them over a computer screen. Now, from the moment students are dropped off in front of school, they're having to stay 6 feet apart and wear their masks. But the students I spoke to said they weren't bothered by these precautions. They're just excited to be back in school with their friends. The first day of school in the middle of the year.
There are just smiles all around, happy kids. We didn't have one crying student this morning, a couple of adult tears.
For the first time in months, the halls of Springfield's elementary schools filled with kindergartners and first graders Thursday. Masks and arrows on the ground, staples of a pandemic classroom.
We will be really busy helping kids to remember how to stay safe at school.
Screened for COVID symptoms every morning, students are cohorted with others in their class. They have their own supplies and desks are 6 feet apart.
We have hand washing stations, we have hand sanitizing stations, lunches, breakfast will be served in the classroom versus going to the cafeteria.
Kids back in Springfield schools means a return to the playground, but it won't look like it did before. Kids stay with their class and play in designated zones.
We're just playing The Floor is Lava.
Within their zone, students can play with others in their cohort.
And students know that if a ball or something rolls into somebody else's zone, they let the adult grab it.
Smaller equipment and high-touch areas are sanitized between every recess, and everything cleaned with a pressure washer each morning. Even with new rules, kids happy to be back on the playground.
What's your favorite thing about being back in school?
My favorite thing about school is when I go to recess.
And when the bell rings, educators confident they can safely welcome students back indoors.
It's what we do, you know, is we love kids and we're excited to be with them and have them close again.
Second and third graders will be next up to return to the classroom. Second graders on Monday and third graders a week from today. Now, it's important to note that the district tried to vaccinate all educators having direct contact with students today at last weekend's vaccine clinic. There's another clinic coming up this weekend to vaccinate more educators. Live at Ridgeview Elementary, I'm Olivia Young. Back to you.
What a great story, Olivia. I love that. The floor is lava. All right, well, the Springfield District returns. Eugene 4J is waiting to start their hybrid model until teachers and staff are fully vaccinated. Kval's Keely McCormick joins us now after speaking to some people with 4J today. Now, Keely, why did they decide to hold off?
Well, Jacqueline, 4J is the biggest district in Lane County, so they told me that comes with all sorts of challenges. They'll start the hybrid rollout with kindergarten and first grade. So right now, those teachers and staff are being prioritized for the vaccine. They also give families the option to stay home if they're not comfortable going back to school yet. 4J plans to roll out the model slowly and by grade level in accordance with the vaccination timeline.
You know, in 2-week segments, but we want to make sure that our staff are vaccinated before we bring kids back into school. So it's going to be a long process, but it is sort of light at the end of the tunnel.
If everything goes according to plan, the teachers and staff needed will be fully vaccinated by the beginning of March. Then they'll roll out the hybrid model mid-March. Watson tells us this plan is not set in stone and they will adjust if there are any new obstacles like a spike in new cases or new variants of coronavirus.
All right, thanks, Keely. Kindergarten through 5th grade students in Junction City return to the classroom today. They can go back thanks to a lower case count over the last 2 weeks. Lauren Negretti was there. What did that first day look like for the students?
David, things did look different. Kids were wearing masks, traveling in cohorts, and social distancing. But some things never change, like the sound of the excitement on the first day back at the playground.
Recess still sounds the same. There's still basketball, soccer, and swings. The playground is just divided up. Cohorts of 9 or less students playing in 4 zones and rotating daily. These elementary students are at school in alternating A and B days and going through health checks every morning. The schools have limited entry and exits and social distancing.
What's different?
We have to wear a mask and only half of the class comes in.
Pandemic or not, 4th grader Jack Calvin is glad to be back.
Coming back, seeing some of my friends.
Office staffer and parent to a 2nd and 5th grader, GISELA Tracer, says her kids performed well in distance learning, but
Both excited to get back to school and see their friends and not be in front of their computer.
And siblings have same days.
What are you guys doing to reduce the risk?
6 feet apart in the classrooms. We have a 35 square feet distance between our students.
And she says she feels confident in keeping staff and students safe. A district survey showed a majority of families wanted to return. Tracer says with vaccines coming out, it was the right time for her students.
Comfortable with the information on kids returning to school, and it was the right choice for our household.
And online learning is still an option for families. The principal of Junction City High School previously said following the success of kindergarten through 5th grade return, they'd aim for the rest of their student population to return at the end of the month.
Taking a look now at the latest numbers in the pandemic. Today, the Oregon Health Authority reported 730 new cases and 7 more deaths. This brings the death toll to nearly 2,000 and the total number of cases to 145,000 since the beginning of the pandemic.
Lane County is reporting 7 long-term care facilities fell through the cracks in the initial vaccine rollout. The CDC provides a program that works with pharmacies to get vaccinations to those facilities. But county health staff say they got a lot of messages from people worried about their family members who live in care facilities that had not yet been vaccinated.
So we investigated to see if there were, if this was a trend, if there were multiple long-term care facilities, and we identified 7 that had not been able to be vaccinated or not been enrolled in that federal program.
Lane County is working with emergency medical services to vaccinate Fox Hollow residents this week in South Eugene. They're working on other ways to get vaccines to other care centers as soon as they can. We've asked the county about which other facilities were not vaccinated under that federal program. So far, we've not heard back.
2 mass vaccination events held in Douglas County. The first was for healthcare workers and the second for educators.
Well, Kval's David Ochoa is taking a look at the logistics of vaccinating the general population.
When it comes to vaccinating the public, it's the same old story. There simply aren't enough doses yet.
The system is not up to speed enough for us to have enough vaccine to think about kind of a wide open approach to vaccination.
A lot of work is being done logistically in terms of manpower and scheduling for these events.
Bolton thinks that mass public vaccinations could work. They would just need more help. His suggestion involves bringing in the National Guard.
They could run those Monday through Friday clinics down at the fairgrounds with some augmentation from like our public health and Aviva. And you do that on top of normal clinic visits for vaccination. I think that's how we as a country get ahead of the vaccination curve.
A lot of seniors are waiting for their turn to get vaccinated. Lower Umpqua Hospital in Reedsport had a walk-in vaccination clinic this week for people 80 years old and up. Bolton tells me a mass event for seniors might be tough.
You know, these are elderly folks, and so having them stand in line to go in a mass area at the fairgrounds is probably not advisable.
He suggests primary care doctors take care of seniors with places like Aviva filling in the gaps. Aviva has 2 mobile medical units they plan to eventually use for vaccinations.
The best use of the smaller one is actually not to have patients go through the clinic, get vaccinated, and go out. But the mobile clinic will be a great control cell to maintain the vaccine itself.
Reporting in Douglas County, I'm David Ochoa.
Bolton tells us they're getting more efficient at vaccinating. With a smaller staff, they were able to vaccinate 20 more people 3 hours faster than at the first event.
OHA says it is launching a new tool next week that will allow you to see if you're eligible for a vaccine. And it will also let you sign up to get alerts through text or email about vaccine events in your area. For now, if you have questions, you can go online to covidvaccine.oregon.gov. You can also text OR-COVID to 898-211. You can also email them, orcovid@211info.org, or just call 211. Democrats in Congress are putting pressure on President Biden to cancel federal student loan debt. But some argue the cost of canceling debt is too high or unfair to those who already paid off their loans. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar has more.
Cancel $50,000 in student debt.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer joining Democratic House and Senate colleagues Thursday with a bold proposal aimed to help the more than 40 million Americans who owe federal student loans.
And there's very little that the president could do with the flick of a pen that would boost our economy more than canceling $50,000 in student debt.
Senator Elizabeth Warren says it would cost about $650 billion.
It's not priced out the same way as if it were if Congress did it. This is about an executive action that ultimately will boost our economy.
President Biden supports forgiving $10,000 per person, but White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki says he wants to see it done through legislation in Congress.
If it is passed and sent to his desk, he will look forward to signing it.
But in the past, many Republicans in Congress voted against forgiving student loans as recently as last year.
Now, there is an alternative plan to address student loan debt, which does have some Republican support. It would simplify repayment options and forgive debt after 20 years.
If Congress wants to help, it should pursue policies that actually drive down the cost of tuition.
Lindsay Burke, the director for education policy at the Heritage Foundation, says there's also a question of fairness.
Many individuals made a conscious decision not to attend college to avoid debt. So forgiveness proposals at any amount would foist someone else's debt onto them.
Now it's up to President Biden to respond to Democrats' call to cancel debt. Until then, federal borrowers get a temporary reprieve as due payments remain on hold through September. On Capitol Hill, I'm Atra El-Nashar.
Coming up here on Kval News, the Super Bowl is almost here. Health experts issue a warning. Kval's Amanda Slee checks in with a bar to get the details.
Plus, Research Stadium is getting a serious facelift, how they're using a $50 million donation for upgrades.
Plus, looking for something to do? How about drinking wine in a bubble? How's that sound? Those stories in just 2 minutes.